Good evening, everybody. I should say early morning. It's early morning on Sunday, March 10, 2024. This is going to be my last video for today. And I wanted to talk about the McCarthy Blacklist and fusion centers. So for anybody that does not know about fusion centers or is not familiar with what they are, there are 80 of them in the United States. Each fusion center is owned by the state that the fusion center resides in. In many states, fusion centers work in cooperation with or under the same or in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, that's the way it is here in Kentucky. If you go to Homeland Security Department here in Kentucky, you'll also see the fusion center there. So fusion centers in the United States are designed to promote information sharing at the federal level between agencies such as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the United States Department of Justice, which is DOJ, and state, local, and tribal law enforcement. As of February 2018, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security recognized 79 fusion centers. Well, that was 2018. There are currently 80 fusion centers. So, fusion centers are state-owned and operated centers that serve as focal points for the receipt, analysis, gathering, and sharing of threat-related information between federal, state, local, tribal, and private sector partners. What are private sector partners, you might venture to ask? Well, private sector partners could be InfraGard. They could be your community informants. They could be your community-based agents. They could be fusion center operatives. They could be private security contractors. They could be the military, right? They could be a local business. They could be a local corporation. So the National Network of Fusion Centers, let me just scroll down here. This is at the dhs.org, okay? So it's the Homeland Security. It's related to fusion centers. So the National Network of Fusion Centers brings critical context and value to Homeland Security and law enforcement that no other federal or local organization can replicate. Fusion Centers accomplishes through sharing information, providing partners with a unique perspective on threats to their state or locality, and being the primary contact between frontline personnel, state and local leadership, and the rest of the Homeland Security enterprise. The National Network of Fusion Centers is the hub of much of the two-way intelligence and information flow between the federal government and our state, local, tribal, and territorial and private sector partners. The fusion centers represent a shared commitment between the federal government and the state and local governments who own and operate them. Do you hear that? The state and local governments own and operate fusion centers. Individually, each is a vital resource for integrating information from national and local sources to prevent and respond to all threats and hazards. Yeah, they're doing a great job, huh? Great job. The enhanced collaboration between the federal government, SLTT, and private sector partners represents the new standard through which we view Homeland Security. So they created this new standard, and what they're doing is they're gathering information on everybody in the community, everybody everywhere, particularly people who are placed on some lists, targeted people, people who are blacklisted, people who are watch listed. According to the ACLU, Trapped in a Black Box, Growing Terrorism Watch Listing and Everyday Policing, which is a PDF that can be located on my channel and also on the internet anywhere. You can download it. It was based on FOIA requests of the FBI, and the FBI only provided part of the requested documents. The part of the requested documents that were provided to the ACLU were between the years 2006 and 2008. The ACLU went through all the documentation, and in 2016 published their stellar PDF called Trapped in a Black Box, Growing Terrorism Watch Listing and Everyday Policing. As of that writing, there were 900,000 people on a watch list. Once you got on, you didn't get off, and they could move you from list to list. So now, when I spoke with, why do I always forget his name? When I spoke with, Ryan Mitchell, I always forget his last name. It's like two first names together. When I spoke with Ryan Mitchell today, I mentioned the fusion centers, and I asked him if it was possible that, let's say, somebody nominated me to a list 10 years ago, and I'm being targeted, etc. And let's say I inadvertently piss off another high-level person in the future. Such a remote possibility. So let's say I just piss off remotely another high-level official who gets their knickers in a knot and decides, I want to get even with that Lorraine, and then decides to nominate me to a list. I asked him, I said, is it possible to be nominated multiple times? And he says, yes, but the way it works is, if you're already on a list to be targeted, somebody can certainly nominate you again, but it doesn't replace you on a list. Once you're on a list, you're on a list. They may move you around from list to list, but what happens is other groups, other organizations, other facilities may become involved. That's what would happen, is other people become involved. You don't go on another list. You don't get on 20 lists. You get nominated, you're on a list, and then if somebody else comes along 2 years later, wants to get even with you, that will just disseminate your information to other groups. That could be a private contractor. Very often it's a private contractor. Let's say somebody wants to get even with you. They've got a group of bully lawyers. They've got, private contractors that they can pay. They've got money. Let's say they're a 501c3 national nonprofit that brings in millions of dollars. That's not coming out of their pocket. And then they receive grants on top of it. So they're willing to pay a lawyer, lawyers, or private contractors to get involved. It's not costing them a dime. So he said, yes, you can be, if your name is allegedly called in again, it's not that you get placed on multiple lists. Although you can get moved from list to list so that you never get off a list. But what happens is that other people may be contracted to harass you. So, and hence, when you move around, it not only follows you, but it gives other people, other groups in the community, the opportunity to get involved. Like here, it's off the wall. The types of people that get involved are absolutely despicable. Bullies, cowards, intimidation tactics, fear tactics. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, so now what happens with the fusion centers is they collect all of this information. And what they do is, they send their operatives out there. The operatives are out in the community. They are the ones that are spreading the defamation campaign in the community. They're the ones that spread the defamation to the neighbors, your sheriff's departments, right? And each one they come in contact with, they spread a different amount of information. But what they do is they gather information on you personally, who your contacts are. Now, I have so many contacts from years and years between being a professional astrologer, speaking to people around the world. I was a staffing recruiter for, I don't know, I think it was 6 years. I had my own staffing business, and I spoke to people not only all over the country, but all over the world. Like, I was recruiting network engineers from other countries, from a lot from India. I had a client in Japan. So let's say that's in my contact list, right? It's in my contact list. So these criminals, when they target you, they go through all of your information. Now, just because I worked with somebody to locate a job for them, it doesn't mean that I know anything remotely about their history, their family, their friends, their criminal history. I don't get involved with that stuff. I interview people and placed them in jobs. I referred them to jobs, and those individuals would interview them. I would only interview them for whether or not they were suitable for the job and had the appropriate education and technical background. And that's usually what it is. It's usually the responsibility of the human resources manager to perform any background checks on the person. So let's say I've got resumes, and I actually had thousands of resumes on my hard drive. Thousands. I actually just looked through them, and they were from so long ago that I deleted them to save room on my hard drive, because they're from 20 years ago. And I guarantee that a lot of these people don't exist anymore. And especially a lot of them disappeared after 9/11, unfortunately. But I'm sure they don't exist anymore. Some of them were older than me at the time. So anyway, yeah, I had thousands of resumes from people all over the world on my hard drive. So you could see how some stupid Fusion Center operative would say, oh, wow, look at all her contacts. She's got contacts. Oh, my God, through FISA. She's got contacts from people from all over the world. Oh, my goodness, she must be a threat. And this is what they do. They fabricate evidence. They fabricate a narrative, sort of like in Manalapan, New Jersey, when I lived there for 30 years. My perpetrator neighbors would throw pussy willows in my backyard. And then I found out that the neighbor that I lived next door to for 20 some odd years, he called me a skinny little whore out of nowhere. And I remember telling my mother, and she says, "And he called you that?" I said, "Yeah." And of course, I didn't know that I was targeted at the time. And evidently, they were spreading that slander campaign around. And then when I moved to Kentucky, the biatch next door says, "Oh, you didn't file your survey yet? Oh, is that because you don't pay people?" And it's like, I don't know this bitch from a hole in the wall. And obviously, she doesn't have a land survey. All these years later, there's not one that appeared. And they would approach every person that worked on my property and tell them that they were going to threaten to sue them if they continued to clean my property. So thank you, the Fusion Centers. This is what Fusion Centers do. They collect all of your information, fabricate a defamatory narrative, and spread it into the community. And then you got idiots that believe everything that they hear. They want to go along to get along. They're sheep. They can't think for themselves. They're mind controlled, etc., etc. So then what happens is that is considered to be a blacklist. And then it happens on various levels. It's sort of like when I hired a real estate agent last year to sell a piece of my land. She was very nice and everything. She did absolutely nothing. Century 21. Yeah, I'm going to blow the whistle on Century 21 here in Kentucky. So she took my listing. She never sent out the introduction cards, you know, where they send them out into the communities. She never put the ribbons on the property. Any phone calls that came in, she never told me about. And then when my listing expired, she never contacted me. That's not what a real estate agent does, especially when they want to earn some money. So I'm guarantee that she was contacted. Guarantee. And this is what happens is they threaten people, they bribe people, they spread a false narrative. All of these people literally should be sued for defamation. I saw a video this past week where a parent sued another parent for defamation, and after all these years won the lawsuit because the parent, the narcissistic parent, wanted full custody of all the children. Lied. Just what narcissists do. They lie. And they're believed. And for years he had full custody of 3 children by defaming the other parent. It was heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. Finally, the other parent had proof, evidence brought to the court, and that parent that fabricated all the evidence now had to pay. It was over $20 million lawsuit settlement. Million, not thousand, million. It's like one of the biggest defamation, except for celebrities, I'm sure, for a regular person, for destroying his life, taking his children away from him for years. I mean, the children are now adults. They're, in their late teens and adulthood. For ruining his career, harming his marriage, his friendships in the community. That's what defamation does. This was fake stuff spread around. And he won a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. And that's what fusion centers do. They send their fusion center operatives, these psychologically abusive, sadistic, pathetic criminals. They should all be in prison. And there are 80 of these fusion centers in the United States, and they are state-owned. So what is the McCarthy Blacklist, okay? The McCarthy Blacklist, also known as the Hollywood Blacklist, refers to the practice during the 1940s and 50s in the United States, particularly in Hollywood, where individuals suspected of having communist sympathies or associations were denied employment opportunities and ostracized from the entertainment industry. Senator Joseph McCarthy played a prominent role in the anti-communist movement during this time, although the blacklist itself was not directly created or maintained by him. However, McCarthy's activities, including hearings by the House Un-American Activities Committee, the HUAC, contributed to the atmosphere's fear and suspicion that led to the creation and enforcement of the blacklist. There was no formal process for placing somebody on the blacklist. Often individuals were accused by others, sometimes without evidence or based on flimsy associations. If you know somebody through somebody, you friend somebody on Facebook who knows somebody, the 6 degrees of separation, you always know somebody, right? But you don't know everybody's background. You don't know their family. You don't know their friends. You don't know sometimes their employment or past employment. And just because you're associated with somebody, let's say you're friends with them on Facebook, these losers make an association and place you on a list. Oh, they must be a leftist. They must be communist. Oh, they must be a terror threat. And by the way, yes, they did write the word terror threat on one of my incident reports with the informant neighbor, you know, with the one with the crying children that she ignores all day long. The one that reported me for walking on my driveway. She ran out of her front door, then tells the police that I cursed at her with her infant son in the trunk of her car when her infant son was in the house, likely screaming his little head off while she was harassing me while I was walking on the driveway. But yes, so the Manalapan Police Department wrote on the incident report, terror threat, disorderly conduct. This is what police do. They lie. They lie. When they all have an agenda, they're little weenie boys, they like to lie. They especially hate women. I think they must fear women. So anyway, once someone's name was associated with communism or leftist ideologies, they could find it extremely difficult to secure work in the entertainment industry. Removing oneself from the blacklist was a complex and often arduous process. Many individuals had to publicly denounce their past associations or beliefs and testify before HUAC or provide names of other suspected communists in order to regain employment opportunities. This means like ratting out somebody else to relieve yourself. It's horrible. Some chose to leave the country altogether, which, by the way, I'm just going to add here. I watched another video this week of a former CIA agent who's telling everybody to leave the country before 2030, that he will be leaving the country by 2027. Anyway, it's important to note that even after taking such actions, some individuals remained blacklisted or faced ongoing stigma. So even if, let's say you've gone to court, you won a lawsuit or whatever, some individuals still remain blacklisted and faced the ongoing stigma. Because, you know, once a rumor is spread, stupid people believe stupid stuff. The blacklist era was a dark period in American history characterized by widespread fear, censorship, and the violation of civil liberties. It had a profound effect on the lives and careers of countless individuals in the entertainment industry and beyond. So now we're not talking about the entertainment industry now, although we know that that happens in the entertainment industry. We're talking about regular people, you and I, everyday citizens, workers, students, moms, dads. And they're surveilled. They're watched. Their garbage is gone through. Yes, they go through your garbage. They steal your garbage. They want to steal your DNA. Remember what Eliza Orland said, don't trust the police. Don't give them your DNA. They will steal your straw, your water glass, your cigarette butts, your hair. They'll just steal it. Don't give it to them. Eliza Orland is a New York City public defender, and I highly recommend you're listening to her sassy little blurbs. And she posted one today about the National Guard policing the New York City subways. I highly recommend you're listening to it. Perhaps I will post a link to it in the comments section. But anyway, I look forward to your questions and comments. This is Lorraine Alternative Homesteading. Fusion centers, they share your information with the FBI, Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, state and local tribal law enforcement. Do you want local law enforcement to know what you ate for dinner last night? Do they really care? Do you want them to see you undressing in your house? Do they want to know what color you dye your hair? Do they want to know who your friends are? Of course they do. They comb through your friends list. They go through your email list, and they will actually contact. They will actually contact people in your contact list and lie. Oh, we're performing an investigation. Would you help us? Could you watch that person? Could you let me know when they leave the house in the morning? That's what they do. They lie. Anyway, I'm going to sign off for now. Leave your questions and comments down below. And tell me, how has the slander and defamation campaign worked for you in your community, in your job, your place of employment? And if you've moved, did it follow you? And if so, did it change? Was it the same? I look forward to your comments down below. Please remember to hit the thumbs up, help the channel grow, get the message out there. Signing off for now.